morning. Today we are starting with our lesson on internal controls. Strategy number one. Internal controls are anti-fraud and anti-corruption strategy number one. As we have already said or noted, internal controls are the first lines of defense against any wrongdoing within an organization, especially uh, financial transaction wrongdoing. They, they, sorry, internal controls have been considered from time immemorial and shall continue to be considered as the first lines of defense against wrongdoers, especially those from within the organization itself. In this lesson, I will discuss with you the relationship between internal controls and the corruption and the impact internal controls have on curbing the problem. This lesson should also be of interest to scholars in the field of corruption and anti-corruption. The, para, the, the notes below will not only define internal controls, but will also reveal the limitations of internal controls due to political influence, collusion, and the management override. What are internal controls? Internal controls are defined as systematic measures such as reviews, checks, balances, methods, and procedures instituted by an organization to conduct its business in an orderly and efficient manner, safeguard its assets and resources, deter and detect errors, fraud, and theft, ensure accurate and the completeness of its accounting data, produce reliable and timely financial and management information, and ensure adherence to its policies and plans. Reference on this definition is made to www.businessdictionary.com. I repeat, reference on this definition is made from www.businessdictionary.com. That is where you can get that definition of internal controls. Internal controls serve as the first lines of defense against fraud and corruption, including all types of financial wrongdoing that might be perpetrated in or against an organization. From the definition above, it goes without saying much that internal controls touch on all aspects of an organization. I can therefore rightly say that without effective and proactive internal controls, many things can and do go wrong in an organization. The whole business will be carried out in a much disorganized manner, and fraud or corruption will not be missing in the absence of internal controls. Let me assure you, as my students, that as you go through this lesson, you follow me through this lesson, fraud is going on in your organization undetected for many months or years if the strategies we are discussing in this lesson are not already in operation proactively. I am aware that many organizations have some form of internal controls, but the question is, are they working for the organization or they are just manual cooks, sleeping and gathering dust in office cabinets as employees and managers work without creative and critical thinking? I am going to explain the type of internal procedures and the systems that can work for organizations to reduce instances of wrongdoing and hence minimize minimize losses to fraud and corruption. I will be discussing the whole control and environment of an organization in this lesson. Failures, internal controls that lead to fraud and corruption. Lack of lack or weak approvals and authorization policy or procedure. When staff know that there are proactive approvals and authorization procedures, they get deterred from attempting to perpetrate evil unless there are loopholes for collusion. And the opposite is very true. Lack of segregation of duties. Segregation of duties is a powerful control, and the lack of it leads to wrongdoing in the organization. One person that is allowed to complete transactions from beginning to finish can easily defraud and cover up his or her trade. The opportunity for wrongdoing is there since no other person is watching closely. Lack of procedures and controls monitoring. Controls go to sleep if they are not closely monitored. I mean proactive monitoring on weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. Regular and irregular monitoring will ensure that weaknesses are spotted early and rectified. Lack of authorization limits. All staff must have limits officially imposed on their responsibilities so that they know where their authority reaches. Limitless authority may lead to abuse. Those signing checks and the purchase orders must be given limits commensurate with their responsibilities. Lack of oversight committees. Oversight committees like the audit committee must be very proactive in discharging its mandate, otherwise wrongs will go unchecked for a long time. The committees must be having members whose integrity has been tried and tested. Lack of access controls or security systems. Access controls in terms of passwords to computer data storage systems must be in place and proactively monitored to ensure that they are being applied according to plan. Access to some areas or sections of a business operation must be restricted by gate guards or automatic locks so that there is no free movement of unauthorized staff in and out of the designated places. Free movement to places where transaction documents are kept, for instance, is dangerous, and very risky. Stores of goods for resale or for internal use must be secured properly to minimize or rather eradicate leverage. Blind trust that leads to lack of proactive verification. This nature for managers and even directors to have staff that they trust 100%, but it is very, very risky business to do so all the time, since such trust is an opportunity to be defrauded big time. I have seen senior managers who trust their accountants to the extent of just asking them where to I sign whenever documents are brought to them for approval or authorization. They ask that silly question. Just imagine such manager is a liability to that organization because he can sign fraudulent documents easily. I saw one who signed 2.5 million worth of fraud over 3 years without detection until their data came complaining of mismatch between receipts issued to him and the amounts credited to his account against them. Such careless managers can even sign blank checks without noticing. Types of controls. I do recognize three types of internal controls for purposes of fraud and corruption control as follows. Number one, proactive, preventive, or deterrent controls. Number two, detective controls. Number three, proactive controls. These three controls are discussed in this lesson. Let us now ask the question, what are preventive controls? These are controls that are designed to act as deliberate barriers to the perpetration of any wrongdoing in and against the organization in the first place. They ensure that the occurrence of irregularities is made very difficult. The design of these controls requires several brainstorming sessions, but it do not require much effort once they are in place. Continuous monitoring of the internal controls must be built into the whole system of internal controls. Preventive controls are also designed to ensure that errors and other unintentional irregularities do not happen in the organization. The errors and other irregularities not related to fraud or corruption can also cause harm or loss to an organization. Examples of preventive controls are segregation of duties, proactive checking approvals and authorizations of transactions, physical access control restrictions, computer passwords, and access controls. Pre-employment employee screening and on-the-job training. This, this is discussed in details later. What are the detective controls? What are detective controls? Sorry. Detective controls are designed to ensure that errors, irregularities, and fraud are not only detected, but also detected early enough so as to minimize the losses or harm or damage to the victim organization. They can come in to help when the wrongdoing has already occurred. Detective controls are more costly than preventive controls since they require more continuous operational expenses. Examples of detective controls are 1. Monthly reconciliation of bank accounts. 2. Review and verification of refunds. 3. reconciliation of petty cash accounts, 4. Audits of payroll disbursements and conducting fiscal inventory. Let us now move to proactive controls. What are proactive controls? Proactive controls here mean all systems or policies that are put in place to proactively look for loopholes and seal them before they are taken advantage of by the wrongdoers. Procedures like proactive fraud audits are controls in themselves, since they allow the auditors of the organization to go out into sections, departments, and all branches of an organization not to carry out reactive audit, but to proactively look for weaknesses that may lead to fraud and to recommendations for systems improvement. Examples of proactive controls. Branches or divisions or the departments or subsidiaries. Monthly or quarterly brainstorming on the vulnerabilities of the organizations or government systems. Control environment. The control environment is like the foundation of the culture of controls, policies, and procedures in an organization. The following are the components of control environment: integrity and ethical values. Examples of these include the integrity and honesty of the organization, leaders, their employee management practices, honest selling information, transparency in dealing with customers and suppliers. Number two, commitment to competence. The organization must be seen to be practicing policies that lead to competent service delivery to its stakeholders, as well as customers and suppliers. This commitment will be evidenced by recruitment policies, standard skill sets for each and every position in the organization, proactive training policies, across training of staff, and the policy on the use of the expertise of external consultants where competence is lacking in the organization. Board of Directors and Audit Committee. There must be competent board of directors and the audit committee to provide oversight to all operations. Management's philosophy and operating style. This philosophy and operating style must be evidenced by management support of effective internal control over financial reporting, emphasize reliable financial reporting, and supports a disciplined, objective process in selecting accounting principles and developing accounting estimates. Organizational structure. This refers to the arrangement of administrative units within an organization from top to bottom. It also includes the horizontal arrangements like branches, divisions, and subsidiaries. It outlines the reporting lines and authority or at each level of the hierarchy. Some organizations have their structures set up as per their product lines. Assignment of authority and responsibility. The board must decide who is responsible for committing the various departments and sections of an organization financial contractual obligations through a formal delegation authority. The board should also do the following: establish specific limits for certain types of transactions and then communicate to all employees and organizations. Establish job description or personnel to include references to control related responsibilities. Empower employees to correct programs and implement improvements. Human resource policies and procedures. These policies refer to staff management guidelines and the policies and the procedures that may include the following: recruitment procedures, promotion guidelines, staff training, discipline procedures, leave and rotation policy. Conclusion. In conclusion, internal controls are essential for the stability of an organization and, as mentioned above, are often mentioned as an important remedy against corruption. The rationale behind this is reasonably relatively simple. Internal controls impose costs on corrupt practices. If the costs outweigh the benefits, rational individuals will refrain from the wrongdoing. Moreover, the use of internal controls can not only just prevent corruption, but can also generate information on which punitive actions can be based once corruption has occurred. Nevertheless, there is little empirical evidence on the relationship between internal controls and the corruption. Actually, some scholars challenge the effectiveness of internal controls by arguing that the amount and the incorrect type of controls can create um, an environment that reinforces corruption. Others suggest that because they are costly, some controlling efforts may not be worthy making. This is the end of this lesson on strategy number one: internal controls. I'll pause for a minute before I hang up to see whether there are any questions so that I respond to them. It appears there is none. So I thank you very much for listening, and bye bye until the next lesson, almost 12 hours from now. I will be coming online for another lesson.